So there was a time when MTV was a channel devoted to music videos. It has since become kind of a repository for reality TV. If you're an artist or a musician and you have the means to hire a crew and create a beautiful video for your work, I think you should go for it. One alternative would be a lyric video. With a lyric video, when you consider elements of normal video production like principal photography, location scheduling, casting, and stuff like that, it takes those things out of the production process. And they also punch above their weight in terms of value added. Lyric videos have been used for top 40 singles and they've generated millions of views. So if you keep it simple and stick to some fundamentals, you can produce a lyric video at a fraction of a traditional budget. Okay, so we are working inside of Premiere Pro, and we're going to do everything here. I've got a pre-recorded track here, and what I've done is I've actually gone in and I have animated some lyrics just so that you can see what we got going on here.
For us to stop using words like them and those. For us to start saying all of us.
So just as an example of how I'm building that and introducing those type elements and arranging it, I've gone in and I've selected like a little clip from the WAV file, and I'm just going to drag that over here to work off of, and I'm going to start creating some type elements. So I've gone in here and I've used my type tool, and I've selected that, and I'm just going to click in here inside of my window here, and I'm just going to start entering my type elements. So I'm going to select Museo Sans Condensed, and I'm just going to start typing. So there's the first word, and then another element to stop. And I'm just getting the elements in there entered. All right, so now I have my individual graphic elements in there, and with my little typographic elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start roughing them in and arranging them. So I'm going to want these to sort of be similar sizes, and I'm going to arrange them so that they have a uniform baseline. So what I'm going to do to make sure that they all share a common baseline, I'm sort of just going to rough these in real quick. Oops. Like these, I'm going to want, so here in my Essential Graphics panel, I can dial in the size of these selected type elements to whatever I wish. So I'm going to say, let's just say like 150. Probably want to go more, but that's good for now. I want them to have a common baseline. So here's the alignment attributes here, and I'm going to select align bottom. So now they have a common baseline, and I'm going to do something similar here. Let's go again, maybe 150. Actually, I know I'm going to wind up going more on this, so let's go 200. And same thing here. I'm going to go, let's just play with it, 170. All right, let's play. So 200 here as well. So, and I'm just going to move these around until I get something that I like. And again, I have my direct selection tool selected here to do this. And so here I want these to align flush left so that I have a common margin here. I'm going to select these, move these a bit. Again, I'm keeping my spacing a little tighter than I would if I were laying out copy for like a text or a book, because this is display type. I'm gonna go down a bit just to kind of allow for that to kind of have a little breathing room. That looks good. That looks good. And again, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to bring that pretty tight. Yeah, that looks good. So now I have my type arrangement.
For us to stop using words.
So now I have my arrangement. Now I just need to animate these words to pop on as they're being sung. I go into my effect controls and we see each word here. And I'm going to scrub through and I'm going to find sort of the beginning of each pronounced word, and I'm just going to select a keyframe for that word so that I can turn them on and off like a switch. So seeing these words show up as individual text elements and not as a sentence. And the reason for that is so that we can animate each individual word by hand, so that each word shows up exactly when that word is being sung in the lyrics. So if we go to this first word, it pops up as it's being sung.
For us to stop using words.
So, and what I've done here, so essentially, so let's go to this first text element that I've put in here. And what I've done essentially is I have found, so I've sort of just scrubbed through frame by frame, and I'm also sort of monitoring some of the peaks and stuff here in the audio waveform. But a lot of what I'm doing right now is I'm just using my ears, and I'm finding where that word is sort of popping up, is being sung, and I am into this opacity value here inside of this element, and I am giving it a keyframe in the opacity, and I'm just clicking this keyframe here, and I'm going back one frame, and I'm giving it another keyframe opacity value of 0. So anything before this frame here is going to be dark. It's just not gonna show up. It's gonna be invisible. And so the next word comes up, and that is for us. And I twirl down. I go to where it pops up. If I scrub it back one frame, and to do that, I'm just hitting the left arrow key. And I scroll back one frame and I give it that opacity value of 0. So, and I did this for each element for us to come down to the opacity level. I go to that place where it pops up, go back one keyframe, and you'll see there's an opacity level of 0 there. And that's just, so I just did that individually for each word in this arrangement.
To stop using words.
And if you'll notice, like, I also arranged these so that I have a common baseline here. My my line spacing here between this line and this line is actually pretty tight, which you often want when you're doing display type. Which you'll often want when you're doing display type. And then the next cuts are going to actually be individual words. So what I'm doing in these next edits is these words here are essentially only, they're just replacing each other. So I'm not actually even bothering when I come into these cuts with any kind of keyframing. I'm only using, I'm just using cuts. So I enter the word and I trim it left or to the right of the cut. I get this little red arrow icon, and that's so that I can take and I can trim. So that's essentially what I've done, is I've gone in and I've cut and I've trimmed each of these words. So these are all just cuts. So there's no keyframing here. And then you'll notice here there is a cross dissolve effect, and an easy way to access that cross dissolve is I just go in and I apply default transitions. Right now my default transition is a cross dissolve, so when I hit that, it gives me a cross dissolve. And I can if I come in here to the to this little cross dissolve graphic, it will allow me to expand or so I can lengthen or shorten the effect of that dissolve, so as it fades here. And then again, as I come back into this next cut, again we have, if I hover, you will see that I have individual elements here where I have gone in and created this little display arrangement. Again, keeping my leading tight and sort of minding that there is a structure and like a stability to each type arrangement. So again, just minding the basics and trying to create a strong graphic display, a strong type display to really reinforce your lyrics here. And I did the same thing for this as I did with the previous example where I was using my keyframing. So each of these words are individually keyframed with the opacity value. So if I go back to the word for, and we move forward one keyframe here. This is where I set the opacity keyframe for 100. I go back one, and I do that again for each one of these. For us to start saying. So for this last element, I've gone in and done the same thing previously with one little addition. So instead of simply animating so that they pop on and stay on for the duration of the cut, these I have created additional keyframes with the opacity so that they fade out. And what I did, for instance, here with the word all, it pops on here as it's being sung, and then as the last word appears, I set a keyframe there to an opacity of 0 so that it does a slow fade throughout the cut. So if I go here to where us appears, the first word has faded out into 0 opacity. And I did that with the other two words so that they also trail off. So once you get your video kind of where you want it, then it's just time to export. And so you would export your media, and Premiere will pull up the media encoder, and you can choose from different presets. H.264 is pretty standard. I mean, if you're exporting for social media, There are presets in here. Right here I've got YouTube 1080p full HD, and you can set it up. Make sure you choose where you want to save it and what your file name is going to be, and when you're ready you just click export and you're off to the races. So cancel out of that. So I hope you take this and you apply it to whatever you're working on. If it's a song, if it's a spoken word piece, there's a lot of possibility here. So yeah, go forth and create.